There are several areas that have remained on the fringes of art history, and it is through your collecting, through your scholarship, really, that the field of Deccan is one such area. Miniature paintings, textiles, metalware. The field of, we know so much about the field of Deccani art through your collections. Tell us.
You see, when I came to Hyderabad,
Ji.
I mean, everything has its background.
Yes.
Once, as I told, I stayed in Raja Pratapgarji's palace,
Huh.
and he used to allow the compound wall for music performance.
Acha.
One day I saw a beautiful lady wearing a sari which was so different from what else I had seen. Then I asked Pratapgarji's daughter, what is this sari? She told it's a rumal ki sari. Then I wanted to know what is rumal ki sari. Then when I went out, I found the milkmen, barbers, they had these scarves, but simpler motifs of this thing. By chance, in 54, I find 4 of such rumals which were sold by a Nawab family with a dealer. So I bought them and then started, these are the cards. This is like the patolas of Gujarat. So no one till then knew that there was a tradition for making cards for the royalty. There was one group made for common masses, which was exported to the Middle East,
Acha.
Burma, and then these rumals you will find say tie-dyed work. And then because it was for the royal family of the Nizams, these were further embroidered in gold, gold thread. One design, second design, I mean beautifully done.
But this is a special kind of ikat.
A special kind of picat, but the cards of Gujarat are of silk, or Odisha it is silk. It is here, of course, it was exclusively cotton. Whereas you find 9 designs in Gujarat patolas, here I have handled 150 different designs,
I see.
ikats. And now they become very, very famous that there was so much variety.
Yes.
It's just like computer-like designing sense
Huh.
which the artists of Coromandel coast used to do. So these romans are late 18th century, late 19th century.
Huh.
There was documentary evidence that the Dutch records show
Yeah.
that late 17th century they were recorded what were the names of these.
Huh.
So those romans, apart they had no gold jewelry but gold ornamentation, but they had partly kalamkaris. So ikats with kalamkari, they were the earliest forms of the textiles exports. So I am writing a paper on that. So this is actually an area for which I have collected lot of material for 50 years. And today the museum owns about 40 of the best. They are known as Telia Rumals because oil is used in the process of dyeing. They are known as Telia Rumal. So this,
As a resist? Is it used
no,
as a resist? No.
I think for dyeing process it needs
Acha.
turkey red oil.
Acha.
So these are the rumals. I got 40 different varieties.
Oh.
These are embroidered. The others are double ikat or single ikat.
This is?
This is double ikat
Double
because
ikat.
you see it is black and red, they are tight. So for this is different. And how carefully he has broken, the red doesn't come into the black. So this is a great confidence with which now of course people are trying to get, but we don't get examples of these. So, but I presented twice paper on these textiles. So now our catalog of textiles is being brought out. So I'll discuss in detail these. Yes.
Catalog of textile collections. That's good. And about Deccani miniatures, tell
Yes.
us about
Dagni basta nikal लो.
how you started collecting them. These are extremely rare hybrid works of art. Even identifying them.
Yes, being here,
Ji.
there was one collector known as Muhammad Ashraf. Unfortunately, he had a large family, he had to occasionally dispose of some collection. And I used to go and see, a number of things, including marbled paintings, for which now about 28 are known all over the world. I remember he had 8 or 10 examples of this. There is one in National Museum. My museum also has one which has become world famous, being exhibited 3 times.
Yes.
There were other Dakini features. I found slowly there is a lot of difference. I was fortunate also because of the presence of Salarjung Museum and State Museum. Whether they knew the periods or styles, I found there is a lot of variety. So personally, I started studying what is the difference between this and this, the different colors used. Certain colors started being manufactured in about 1829-30. For example, ultramarine blue, which was discovered by Mr. Guimet, who was the founder of the famous Musée Guimet.
Yes.
And green was founded in Germany and things like this. So see, I could say that these are the colors, so these paintings are this date. So mentally I started doing chronology of, say, Dakini painting. And in my early studies about Dakini painting were published as a special issue of Mark in 1963. So later on I continued making researches, continued making collection, and slowly then of course in my mind a very clear-cut idea which are the earlier, which are made in Golconda, which are made in Bijapur, which are made in Ahmednagar, but Ahmednagar are the rarest, and which are made in Hyderabad. Then I found, apart from these 4 styles, there are Dakini painting. There are certain paintings which are not made either in either of these centers, so where they were made. Then I found there is one group which is made in southern Deccan. Then I wanted to know where else they could have been done, so I studied the history of the entire southern Deccan. So I found there could be Karnool, Kadapa, Vanparti, Gadwal, these 6 centers. There was some which had some Maratha feeling. Then I realized they were made for the Bhosles of Nagpur. There was some which were more or less like Mysore, but much better than Mysore was. They were done at Sorapur. So these centers like Pune, important centers like Elishpur, so we are bringing out a very extensive 2-volume book on Dakini painting, which will have these. But more than that, there are studies about artists. So who were the artists? So as far as we know, the basis was the 1591 Pem name manuscript in British Library. We find there are 3 artists. Then we realized, myself and John Seiler, who is a great expert, have identified work of artists. So he had known around 150 painters' work, Mughal work. So using those theories, we have worked also for pahadi painting, now applying to Deccan. Then we could identify work of those Pem name 3 artists, what he has done, which painting is done by first artist, which paintings are done second painter, what third. So like this different painters' work we have identified. Fortunately, then we found in later years after the fall of Bijapur and Golconda, what happened, then we realized center had become Aurangabad because the presence of Aurangzeb's army and presence of various rulers from Bundi, Kota, Bikaner, Jaipur at Aurangabad. But then the artist flocks there. So we found that some of the artists just migrated from Golconda or important Bijapur to Aurangabad. But what was their work? Just eventually 6 months before we found that this artist went from Bijapur to Golconda and this artist from Golconda to Aurangabad. So these works are going out. And then what was the work of when they arrived at Aurangabad, when they could have come, and what was the work done 20 years after them by son, grandson. So 3 generations we are trying to find out. So this is the work going on. So this would be, I think, a very satisfying and useful work for our pleasure and for use of the scholars who are interested in Dakini painting.
It's staggering.
Yes.
It's just completely staggering. It's a completely new, undocumented field. But also, you've also spoken about how Dakini artists went to courts in northern India and how the
Yes, not so much now the very Bikaner, perhaps. It was interaction between Bikaner artists who were in the Deccan at that time. So some Dakini influence was on some Bikaner painters. You find sometimes very Dakhni-like painting done at Bikaner. Perhaps this was because of this interaction. And also Kota, because the Kolkata court was influenced, a part of it by the Iranians' presence. A style of Tabrizi artist was there, and some artists migrated to Kota. So by chance I got a painting with Dragon Valley. So for example, this painting is one of the three rare examples from Ahmednagar. There is one in Bibliothèque Nestle, the other is Raza Library, Rampur. This is the third work by the same painter, and since it has inscription Murk Bazan Shahzada Hossain, Murtaza Nizam Shah's period, 1575, Ahmednagar. And this is very important for study and proof of Golconda's influence. This is Golconda work of about 1650, dragon and these things. And here some work changed and made it softer for Golconda.
Yes.
But then exactly the same drawing I find in Kota. Simple thing. So it was accidental find, then I found the same. So that assumption that Tabrizi artist came to Golconda and Golconda influenced, perhaps Tyaju was a Golconda painter at Kota, is proved because of this drawing. और एक आध दिखा.
What a work this is. What a work this is.
And this is the famous painting
Oh,
which was exhibited this year at the Metropolitan Museum, and they had made 12 feet, blew up and put on some important places. And the fantasy
magical. Such a hybrid work.
change a scale. I mean, who will have a parrot of this dimension?
scale.
But this perhaps was not made for a pattern. Perhaps the artist enjoyed and he made this for himself.
I see.
This is a Golconda work of 1660.
Oh. Why do you say this is not made for a picture?
Pattern will have code scene or it's neither nothing. So it's not a code scene, not a mythological scene. So for whom he will make. 90% chances are the artist enjoyed and painted. This is a Bijapuri work. You can see the finest. You see the work of Mughal bird painters. They are more static, as if someone is photographing. They may be very fine work, but they have no sort of liveliness.
Oh, magic.
Yeah,
Just-
liveliness.
Oh, beautiful. And the inscription is that right?
Yeah, this is a poem. Nothing to do with it. It's a poem. Here. This is a Golconda painting of about towards the end. This is Abul Hasan Tanasa, ruler of Golconda, the elephant. But look at the mass of these elephants. It's like a sculpture on which some details these have been filled in. So these will give an idea of the range of Golconda style paintings. But there are more variations, more than Mughals. Mughals were more or less following Shah Jahan period. 90% of paintings look alike. Either they are court scenes or portraits. There is more variety in the Dakhni painting, not at the same court, but in the regional courts. I mean, so much variety. So that's why one thing, and then from about 1560, the paintings 1560, 70, you find the earliest. Why it is 1570? I mean, that's question no one has answered. This was after the problem with Vijayanagar they had solved, when they defeated and they were peaceful. Then painting started. Perhaps they didn't, even if something was done, it must be more or less in Persian style. You find Nuzum Ulum 1570, 71. There is one manuscript in Raza Library, Khoda Wakht Library, 1569. This Tarikh Hussain Shah Ahmednagar manuscript in Itihas Sanshodhak Mandal, that's also 1569, 70 के बीच में. So all these works were done the early. Later on, soon after 1572, 1580. So like this, these are because of after that there was more peace. Although they use occasionally minor fights, so like mock fights.
Between themselves.
So,
Mock
but Then of course they had time to,
Huh.
and slowly they started developing their own regional styles.
Huh. But do you think also artists came from the Vijayanagar court?
Yes, that is of course after the fall, the nearest was Bijapur. So in Nuzum Ulum you will find a lot of influence of southern deities, their iconography and these things.
Huh.
This is because of that. This is Ram, Sita, Lakshman. In this you will find recurring. This is again Rama, Krishna, etc. Then this also, and this also box. There is one feature. So first, where they could have been made. So about 25 years before I saw one box, and since then I was worried where they were done. See the Hanuman. But I always felt that they should have been done somewhere where more pilgrims came to worship Rama. There are 5 or 6 temples of Rama in Andhra Pradesh. So first I thought it must have been done at Rajamandri or Bhadrachalam, Ram temples. Then the style of drawing was not matching. In Kadapa district, there is a temple at Ontimit. Now it's a very large Vijayanagar period temple of Rama after 25-30 years, where you don't find these metalware in any museum. Even Jabrowski wrote on metalware the whole big book. He doesn't have one thing like this. So I started
You started calligraphy.
collecting calligraphy. Today I have some of the world's best calligraphies, and without anyone's advice.
How?
Hey, one Enemiri Shimel ka writing दिखाओ. Enemiri Shimel was the greatest scholar of Islamic studies. Have you heard about her?
Oh my God.
When she was young, at the age of 19, she was in Turkey, and when the revolution time, people came to kill. Then she rose up on a pedestal, higher place, and then like a saint. He started narrating surahs of Quran, one after the other, one after.
Really?
And the people who had come to kill her started bowing down.
My God.
Eventually, all of them went down on the ground. She is a farishta.
Really?
I have tested her. How I met her.
Huh.
Normally, there is a Max Muller born, and any important guest comes, and they are brought to me. And once a German foreign minister came, and they came to ask, how can we develop more of Indo-German cultural relations? And I think the presence of Enemiri Shimel here will be more useful. But beta patli wali copy uski visitor's book, Purani. So if she comes to Hyderabad, at least I will like to discuss with her that they are discussing about art. तो हमें सोफे में ये books नहीं थी, यहाँ बैठ के discuss हुई. And she used to, when good things, then she will be. We organized lectures. I think never in the history of any institution about 300 people turned up
My God. When was
for
this?
her lecture.
When was
79, 82 or something like this. So when she came here, I mean, twice, 2 lectures, people, I mean, she had such a following about the Muslims. They also came, means staff college hall भर के sides में भर के बीच में खड़े होके. And when she used to speak, she used to speak like this.
Acha.
The evening, there was a reception given to her in Qutub Shahi tombs, which are never allowed, with the incense and kawali. I mean, it was going on, and I was sitting beside her. But the daytime, she had seen some of my Islamic objects. How she, even Metropolitan doesn't have things like this. How, Jagdish? How do you see these things? Then I had a brief discussion. Mir Ali.
Tell us a little bit about Mir Ali. Tell us a little bit about Mir Ali.
Mir Ali भी है. दोस्त मोहम्मद का काम, someone who was financing the whole project of the Islamic studies. वही आए थे कि दोस्त मोहम्मद काम कहीं मिलता ही नहीं. ये आप ही के पास एक है ये. उसकी हुई. ये मीर अली का काम है किताब. ये
Is this a marble?
शाह महमूद निशापुरी का काम है. which I found here. तो बाद में पढ़ के क्वालिटी समझ में आई.
Is
He was the
signed?
greatest calligrapher ईरान में, शाह महमूद. ये मोहम्मद ख़ानदान, अर्दिस्तानी, ये सब
Others-
कैलीग्राफी ये जहांगीर पीरियड की.
Oh. Are any of them signed also?
ये साइन है,
अच्छा.
हर एक के साइन है.
Oh.
दिस इज शाह खलीलुल्लाह, यू नो शाह खलीलुल्लाह. इफ आई एम आस्क्ड टू डिलीवर ए लेक्चर आउट ऑफ पैटर्नेज,
Yeah.
so when compared to Akbar or Jahangir, I think Bijapuri Ibrahim Badir Shah was a greater patron. When he completed the manuscript of Kitab-e-Naras, 16, then he got up and made him sit on the throne. No patron will do that.
Do that.
And there are two calligraphies by Khalilullah.
Yeah.
And I wrote about Khalilullah.
Yeah. Tell us a
That-
little bit about him.
Khalilullah,
He came from.
actually उसके लिए लिखते हैं कि his small writing was so fine that even if it is written on the sky, one can read. So it shows the clarity that sort of poetry was. Here, this is a famous Dakini manuscript page poem, and this is the finest of. It is on marble.
Oh.
Arab.
My
हाँ,
God.
तो फकीर अरब was the court calligrapher और सुल्तान मोहम्मद कुतुब शाह एंड अब्दुल्ला कुतुब शाह, उसका साइंड वर्क
Oh.
रॉयल. ये
और
कैलीग्राफी
marble,
में
my
हाँ, मार्बल पे.
Oof. Oh.
देन आई
This-
गॉट इमाद.
You read Persian and
नहीं,
nahi. Then
कैलीग्राफी के चार्म से मालूम होता है कि ये
why is
पढ़ने के बाद मानिए. यू नो हु इज डिवोटेड, डू यू नो व्हीलर थैक्सन्स नेम?
Yes.
नहीं, क्या मालूम है उसके लिए? ही नोज 30 लैंग्वेजेस. आई मे नो 2% इंग्लिश. ही नोज 30 लैंग्वेजेस. पर्शियन, अरबी आए थे, उसकी ऑटोग्राफ कहीं लिखा विजिटर बुक के अंदर. दिस इज बाय इमाद,
Oof. Oh.
एंड दिस इज ऑन द रिवर्स ऑफ
Oh.
ये पयाग के पेंटिंग के पीछे. तो ये इमाद का था कि व्हेन वहाँ पे ईरान के शाह उसको ये अपनी मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट शाहनामा लिखने के लिए कुछ मोहर भेजे. ही रिटर्न दोज मोहर्स के आई कैन गेट much more for anyone in the public for writing one kitab. This is a very paltry sum. तो स्टाफ के लोग उचकाए उसको कि बदतमीज़ है, इस तरह से कर रहा है. He was murdered. But जहांगीर became fond of his calligraphy. तो लिखते हैं कि you get one calligraphy by Imad, you will be, your rank would be increased. If you get it, I'll pay handsome. So some Imad's calligraphy came into this, one of them.
Is there a special place for tilism in the Deccan? Is there was Safarnama जो लतिका वरदराजन ने edition की, that kind of a document? Is is there a special devotion to this form in the Deccan
Which form?
of tilism of
तिलिस्म एक्चुअली
अजायब al-Makhluqat?
अजाबल मखलूक़ात वगैरह जो है, तिलिस्म स्पेशली अमंग दी मुस्लिम्स, समटाइम दे है रमल या इस तरह के जो कप्स कैलीग्राफिक रहते हैं, उसका पानी देने से क्यूरेटिव रहेगा, बीमारी जाएगी, आपके दुख दर्द दूर. दैट्स ए मैटर ऑफ फेथ. बट इन द डेक्कन somehow this tradition of ajabul makhluqat, a manuscript like this was very strong, perhaps because of the Sufis. Because the Sufis were taking care of this sort of manuscripts or this sort of preaching. So there is no question of Hindu or Muslim or any religion. This is a faith that this will happen, and sometimes they wanted to entertain their clients that this is the other world, people look like this, these are the type of birds there. So Ajabul Makhluqat, the earliest Dakini which I find is 1550 or 60 from Bidar. I got 3 pages of that. Then I got the second Ajabul Makhluqat dated 1570. So this was brought by Colonel Tandon
हाँ,
to Mr. Bharani's shop. I was there.
अच्छा,
The whole manuscript.
हाँ,
So they said, Jagdish Babu, can you tell what it is? Yes, man, I know what it is, I won't tell. So in case you are selling, he will lose, and if he is buying, then he will feel that I have spoiled the deal. No, 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 you can be very frank. On one condition, you buy or he buys, I must have a first pick to buy a paint at your cost. Whatever cost you will quote, I'll pay. Then I told it is Dakini Bijapur. Then one of the best pages was Planet Saturn, fantastic quality, that is now in the museum. He quoted a price. And then I later on learned that was the price they had paid, Tandon had paid for the whole manuscript, 12,000 rupees. But it's accident, but I got my page.
I think we should break now. This can go on and on.
Then things happen one after the other.
But there must be some magic to this.
Yeah, you see,
intense
for example, the
desire and
Dakini
passion
scroll.
for seeking, you can
When I convinced this Venkatramaya about the scrolls in the Deccan that don't consign them to water and damage, save the heritage. After 6-7 months, he brings a scroll. Oh, it's like Vijayanagar painting, like
Acha.
Lepaki. What is this? So what is the price? He told 500 rupees. That's the price he quoted. So I was so happy that day. And the scroll of 30 feet and 3 feet wide. Now it's a museum, it has it at 1625. That's the only example from southern India of that early period. So anyone would have paid lakhs and lakhs, any price for that sort of thing. But God sent me in such a reasonable price, which was not at all difficult for me.
Jagdish ji, in your scholarship and in your collecting, there's some themes that we sort of can see and discern. One is that you have sought out objects that could have remained on the fringes of art history,
Yes.
have not been brought into the domain of art history, but you've sought them out, recognized their value, and preserved them for posterity. And of course, in your collection, they are conserved, they're preserved. Your knowledge of 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 painting, of conservation techniques has preserved them. You've also been involved in several publications that have sort of made them made the scholarly world aware of their value. Tell us some of these. Speak to us a little bit about, say, the Deccanese scroll paintings or the folk bronzes that you have collected, and how did you come across these works? How did you go about collecting them?
See, for example, collecting either scrolls, collecting folk bronzes, or any other type of art, painting, drawing, beadry, I believe when they are in my custody, they should be properly conserved, and each type of work needs a different type of treatment, like a doctor treats different type of diseases. Treatment of different type of paintings and techniques need different techniques of conservation, which I knew, and I told when I'm owning something, it is my duty that the objects are utilized properly, that they should be properly conserved. It should not be owned by me, but they should be so well preserved that they can be used for study, enjoyment, and promoting art in future by others. So each object, when it comes to my ownership, it needs immediate first attention and proper conservation, whether it's a painting, bronze, or something. Now, coming to my scroll collection, but before that, I had started collecting folk bronzes. for which I have a feeling that perhaps I have got about 400 finest folk bronzes produced by Indian folk craftsmen. The interesting part about this thing is that I knew one or two dealers who were the major dealers in folk, as far as classical and folk bronzes in Hyderabad. And I used to see with my limited budget in 54, 55, that a chola bronze of say about 4 or 5 inches was about 2000 rupees, 1500 rupees. A folk bronze was 10 to 15 rupees. I realized that a bronze, whether it's a chola or pallava or any early style, the aesthetic quality of a folk bronze is giving me equal pleasure. So I thought, why should I concentrate in acquiring folk, which will take away most of my budget for buying one piece, either painting. So I started collecting folk bronzes. The options were very big because there were few buyers for collecting folk bronze. So I could choose out of 50 pieces, one piece, another time another piece. So in the course of time these things happen. Then this has a history also. Certain bronzes were not available in 55. For example, the Khond bronzes created by the tribes in southern Odisha, in northern Andhra, they created some of the finest folk bronzes. They were not known, except 2 or 3 which are in the Victoria Albert Museum and 1 or 2 in Madras Museum. So I always craved to get them. Those in the Victoria Albert Museum were published by Stella Kamrish in Unknown India in 78, that book. By chance, about the time, just before the time of the Festival of India in Metropolitan took place, they exhibited about 20 folk bronzes from the Khond area. How I got them is before that, it's about 6 months or 1 year before, I found with some Orisian folk or Bastar folk bronzes, 2 or 3 were positively the Khond type. But the difference between Bastar bronzes is that they have horizontal lines on the body. The Khond bronzes have mesh. So I asked the dealer that I didn't fully disclose, otherwise the prices will go up. That I told I want these black animals and figures. So next time I think half of them are Khov, half of them were Orisian. Next time, 1 or 2 months later, some people who used to collect from field work, they bought 6 or 7 Khond bronzes in Orissa village. They were taking tea on a tea stall with the bronzes in front. The girls who were serving, they told, "You are collecting these, buying these?" They were, "Yes." Wait, because they had become Christians and they had hidden some of these in the case because discarded gods. And very relevant didn't know about this fact. So although he was working in that area, central India and so out of middle India, he had no idea. So when things were brought, I started selecting out of that. Then 1 month later, this group of dealers, they found 50 pieces. I thought I'll have the best monopoly of these bronzes. When confronted with so many, I told I'll take 1 or 2 which I like. So slowly I had the best choice, the others were distributed. From that group, the Festival of India Metropolitan, someone has lent those bronzes. I went on collecting. The reason was the Benin bronzes and African bronzes are among the costliest than Chola bronzes. I thought that some gold mine is coming so easily to me. But since so many, I mean the prices didn't go that high, but I had a choice of 50 topmost Khond bronzes now in my collection. Now another very important group is from the Malabar area. where the system of worship called Bhuta worship. There are wooden carvings in the Crafts Museum. They propagate some deities, also animals who harm human beings, and there is a type of worship known as Bhuta worship.
Yeah.
They made wood carvings. By chance, I saw one or two fantastic bronzes. Sometimes they worship them and they animal figures, boars, tigers, things like this, and sometimes masks. So once I got one or two. At one time, a person brought 4 or 5 tigers and boars. That's fantastic quality. I bought them. They are the best anywhere in the world. No museum on earth owns any one of that quality. 17th century. Perhaps they were.
17th century.
Yes, they were acquired by. They were made for some vada. Some big rich landlords. They had these, and somehow they were discarded, not being worshipped. There are 18th century, 19th century also. But then I got these great bronzes. Before that, because of my interest in pahadi painting, in 66, 67, whenever I went to North India, the dealers, apart from pahadi paintings, I found they are showing some different type of figures types. And I found these folk pahadi bronzes. They are from 15th, 16th, 17th century, but the quality of their form and I have about 70 of very select pahadi bronzes. So now I am planning to publish books one after the other about these lesser known art forms, especially bronzes. But I think the whole group, pahadi and these things, about 300 folk bronzes will be eye-opener for the scholarly community, artist community, that India produced that. The cost of all these 300 bronzes is so minimal that if I had bought a chola bronzes of say 10 inches or 12 inches, the price of that would be equal to that. But the charm, aesthetic pleasure which that one piece would have given, I got 300 varieties of things which give different types of aesthetic pleasure.
That is true.
Now, second thing is about the scrolls. As I mentioned in the preface of my book, when I came to Hyderabad, sometimes in those days, some mendicants used to go to different areas with a drum, wife playing drum, or wife carrying an image, and the husband playing drum. So once I saw that she is carrying an image of a deity. I was keen where they are made. I paid them to play music just to listen, not to listen but to enjoy that figure. So I asked, where do you get? Then she mentioned one village which I couldn't understand because it was a very corrupt Telugu word. But later on I found one other person, then he gave that they are made in one village about 60 miles from here at Cherial. So I invited the artist to where this Cherial, so I came to know about the location and the map of Andhra Pradesh. The artist Venkat Ramaya came. Then my research I found that he doesn't belong to Cherial. In fact, the family, there are two artists in the family, his cousin, elder brother, they used to make and sometimes jointly make. At some stage there was some difference of opinion, they separated and both started doing separately. But Venkat Ramaya, being a superior artist, a cousin got him poisoned. So he came and settled in Cherial because his sister was married there. He came for treatment there, and thereafter, from about 1940, the family settled there. Now Venkat Ramaya's two sons and grandsons continued that, but Venkat Ramaya was, I think, one of the greatest folk painters which Andhra produced. Once I asked him that, can you do something other than what you are doing, themes other than that? Yes, very polite. The thing is that he would be sitting, squatting, you can see in the book. Start doing from bottom to top. He would simply, you give a theme, can you do Lanka Dahan? As if some dream he is getting that image, and he will paint that image. You give another theme, he just wrote, he say, बोलेंगे ध्यान करके the image comes. Then he painted like this. So I asked, what do you do? Apart from how long you have been doing? To a long time. But how long? So many years. My father was doing, my grandfather was doing. What happens to those old pieces? He told, when we make a new piece, there is a celebration like birth of a child. And then when the craftsmen take, they worship, and there is a worship before performing. That scroll is kept in a temple. That's like the birth of a child. And when it's kept in a temple, it is believed now it gets some sort of divine quality, capable of conveying blessing to people, capacity to not only communicate the respect, I say like sort of divine form giving, sort of darshan. But once it is slightly damaged, of course, now that he is dead, it doesn't have that capacity. So it has lost that godliness.
Widespread
Yes,
belief.
it's lost. So they consign them to water body, river, pond, whatever in the local. Then I told, why you destroy this thing? Instead of that, for my research purpose, I'll pay you for the old scroll and pay for the new ones. The new ones they used to cost 800, 900 rupees, 30 feet painting. That was the economy, and 3 feet wide. And then I asked about old ones, 400 or 500 rupees. So they were happy. So perhaps you would pay 200 rupees from the performers instead of don't do it, but he'll make 100 rupees. That process he bought intervals of 6 months, 1 piece, 2 pieces. And one he brought after he could convince these craftsmen, 1 piece which is the earliest South Indian painting, whether scroll or other things, 1625, which is 30 feet, and deals with the story of Markandeya Puran. It's about shown to the weavers community about their progenitors and the heroic deeds they perform. So this is the scroll. So museum has 8 scrolls, and I have published all with the stories, the style, what were the influences made the style, what was the technique used, etc.
Yes, your modes of collecting, of research have varied so much. This is like an anthropologist project where you went, you're documenting a living tradition.
Yes.
Documenting the ways in which it was used, the fact that the painters and the patrons belong to different communities. And you also built up a relationship with the painter and his family. And it's a huge, long kind of.
No, I have to develop a
living with
relation.
this.
See, whenever Venkataya Rama came, Mrs. Mittal used to give him 1 or 2 saris for his wife, some dress for this. Apart from that, so that was a tradition. They were not only honored when they performed or painted, it's called dresses for the family were given by the performers who came. So this sort of thing was there, but that was appreciated. That made him very close to me, that he is being respected and compensated.
Why do you think these scrolls have, scroll paintings from, say, Rajasthan or Bengal have been studied?
No, they have been studied, the Rajasthani fur painting, but also the scrolls from Bengal. The difference here is they are the largest. The Bengal scrolls are painted by the artists themselves and performed also by them.
Yes.
And the material is mostly flimsy on very ordinary paper. The Rajasthanis were done on cloth and they used to be consigned after performing.
Yes.
Now because of tourists, number of tourists having chance of seeing, this has become a commercial commodity both for performance, making copies, but there are only 2 or 3 times when they buy, they get only the same painting.
Yes.
That's the difference.